Hi, I'm Dave Sellinger, and I'm making this video for all of you out there who may eventually have to have open heart surgery. I'm doing it in a tribute to a YouTuber who calls himself Scott Steff 16, and that was really inspiring for me when I was getting ready for my surgery and just kind of dealing with all of the noise out there and trying to figure out, what do I do? How dangerous is this? What do I need to do to prepare? And so again, thank you to Scott Steff 16. You guys were a godsend to me for the last year. And so I had, in my situation, I had an aortic aneurysm, and it was right on off of the valve on my heart. And I had to have a replacement surgery. So I'll start out by just kind of walking through my experience, and then I will talk a little bit about some of the lessons that I learned, some of which were pretty different from Scott Steff's experience. I'm just going to call him Scott from now on because I'm going to assume his name is Scott, but I don't know for sure. So my timeline was that almost exactly a year ago, in December of 2022 is when I had my surgery. We initially discovered just some irregularities a year before that in December 2021, and we went through a series of tests and actually thought that I was going to be just fine. But then unfortunately in November of 2022, they discovered that I'd had a rapid expansion in the size of my irregularity in my aorta. So from my experience, there's kind of these big phases of what I went through, right? The initial, hey, there's something wrong. Then I got a second opinion, and it was really clear that I wasn't going to need surgery for a while. But during that phase was mostly pronounced by a lot of Googling, just crazy amount of Googling and trying to figure out, what does this mean? I had never researched anything about my cardiovascular. I exercise a lot, and so I'd never really worried about it, to be frank. And it caught me off guard, and I felt very much very lost. And that would be the period where we're getting lots of tests, lots of scans, lots of MRIs. I ended up getting a second opinion from Cleveland Clinic. That would be one of my recommendations, is that if you do go through this process, as early as possible, give yourself a second reference point, whether that's a local physician. I was very fortunate to be able to get a hold of Cleveland Clinic, and they offer this service where they will review all of your records and give that to you. The confidence that gave me in dealing with something that I knew basically nothing about was immeasurable. And having another person that, when they eventually did say, hey, it's time for surgery, you need to pick a surgeon and get ready, that I had somebody to refer to, and they referred me to my surgeon at Stanford, and he was amazing, and that whole team was amazing. The second phase really was after it became clear I needed surgery. So once I needed surgery, I entered a phase where now I was really sad. I was crying almost every day. I was afraid of death. I've got two little girls, and I've got my wife, and I've got 4 dogs. The 4 dogs are the ones I was the most worried about, of course. No, just kidding. But it was a time, that month between when it was clear I was going to need surgery and the surgery itself, was some of the toughest time during this entire process for me. Just the unknown, right? I mean, you're going to go to sleep, and the good news is you're going to wake up, right? I mean, this is a surgery that was invented in the 50s, and again, a product of a lot of Googling. They figured out how to do open heart surgery, and all of a sudden the survival rate for the problem that I had, the aneurysm, went from 0%, literally 0%, to like 99-ish%. And that's where it's at today. And so I think you can take a lot of comfort in knowing that while this is very new and scary for you, as weird as it may be to think about, you're kind of like a car going through a factory. They do this all day, every day, and it's a very regular and common procedure nowadays. That said, that doesn't help a ton during that period. During that period, it was just really scary. I got a lot of my things in order, my will, my trust, making sure I had everything kind of taken care of. I wrote a letter to my kids. I recorded videos for my kids. That's maybe a little too morbid for some of you, but it helped me do something in that period where I felt so helpless. Then I had the surgery. The day before, you do kind of a bunch of different stuff. You kind of take some medicines. You may have to wash with special washes. And then I went in and I woke up. And I was in a lot of discomfort for the first few days, but I was, as soon as I was kind of cognizant again, as soon as they brought my pain medicine down to the point where I could think clearly, one of the most amazing things about this experience for me was how much gratitude I was filled with for that entire period during recovery. I remember waking up the third day, I think it was the first day I felt good. Just it did take a couple days, but the third day was the first day that I felt good. And I remember waking up, and the first person I saw was my nurse, and she was bringing in, I think it was like tea. And I just remember looking at her and saying, thank you so much for the tea. Like, I can't believe I get to consume tea just like a normal human being and be a normal human being. I loved it. And that sense of gratitude, I've worked really hard during the entirety of my recovery to hold on to that sense. The recovery's been up and down, would be the way I would describe it. It's long. Here I am a year out, and I'm still figuring out what my body can and can't do that I could do before. And so in the first month, oh my gosh, like just such massive recovery. Every single day, I felt like I could do something new. I felt like you have all these drainage tubes in you. They take those out, and then all of a sudden it becomes easier to breathe. Then they disconnect some of the wires, and then you can walk around freely. And then they give you a walker, and you can walk around by yourself. And it's just, that whole first month is just, it's like you get to be a baby learning everything new, but with the cognizance of an adult. That was awesome. The second month was more rapid recovery, but now obviously I'm at home 100%. I could do a little bit of work, like logging into my email and stuff like that. But now the recovery is kind of going into more of the repetitive phase, where every day is not new. You're just getting incrementally better. I would take a walk every day, and every day I would try to go a little bit longer. I would walk my dog, and I try to go a little bit faster. I would time myself. I used Strava to do that. The third month was where things really slowed down. So the third month is when I started cardiac rehab. I started to work regularly, and I had to relearn what it was like to sleep on a normal schedule and kind of bring my life back into some sense of normalcy. Then between the fourth month and now, I would say that it's been a very, very slow recovery. I can not restricted in terms of activities, which is great. I can pretty much do everything, but I do it differently. So for example, I used to swim a lot for my exercise, and swimming no longer works for some reason. It doesn't provide my body the type of cardiovascular stress that I wanted. So I've had to shift my workout routine to be more weightlifting. Cardiac rehab stopped working for me, and my blood pressure started going up instead of coming down. I needed to add more of the weightlifting to bring my blood pressure down. I've gotten sick a couple times in the last year. I got COVID in like month 4 or so, and that really sucks, by the way, right? So my lungs, my heart are not restricted in terms of their activities, but they don't recover the same way. My COVID recovery took weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks before the cough would go away. And even now, again, a year later, when I get a cough, it's lasting really long. In fact, today I have a little bit of a cough, so I've got tea with me again. And so I would kind of characterize the recovery as very, very consistent and holding on to that sense of appreciation and holding on to that sense of gratitude has carried me through that year. And so with that, I mean, that's kind of been the last year. I'm doing okay. I'm working full time, and my family and I are very happy and blessed. So I'll share a little bit more about some of the lessons that I learned. I'll start with before surgery. Before surgery, during the early phases of diagnosis, one of the things that we learned was that a CT scan with and without contrast is really it's called the golden standard in the industry, but it's also for a reason, which is that it's not as volatile as some of the other types of tests you're going to get. You're going to get an echocardiogram, which is essentially an ultrasound where they take pictures of your heart and parts of your body. You can get an MRI, which is not radioactive, right? It uses some forms of magnetic resonance. And then they kind of reserve CT scans because they are x-rays of your body. And so you don't want to get too much radiation in your body. But the echocardiogram and the MRI are really, really noisy. And so in that period, they thought they found other aneurysms in my body. They thought they found that I'd had a heart attack. And that really was not fun. That was a really, really not fun. And so if you're in the phase where you're getting diagnosis type information and you have the opportunity to talk with your doctor about getting a CT scan instead of an MRI, if it's starting to feel like it's spiraling out of control, which is what happened with me, then getting a CT scan brought it back into reality. And if you do have those additional issues, you do. But you want to know concretely, not maybe. The second thing I mentioned already is that I got a second opinion. If you have the financial capability to do it, please do. It helped me a ton. I did the same thing on my surgery. I met with a couple of surgeons before I picked my surgeon, and there's just so many different variables that people will tell you about. I'll tell you the one that I think is the most important, and I'm not a doctor, but what I think is the most important is your sense of comfort, because your mental state going into surgery, your mental state and your level of confidence during your recovery, those are so impactful on the actual outcome. And for me, I remember going into surgery feeling 100% confident in the team that I was working with. And like I just like tear up thinking about it, just because that meant so much when I went into surgery, that I knew how much preparation they put into this and how confident they were going to be in my outcome. I remember the moments before they put me under that I was smiling. And that, again, everybody's different, but for me, that was really, really meaningful. I think one of the other lessons that I got was to try to live every day as realistically as possible, as in the moment as possible. And some people say live every day like it's your last, and some people say, live in the moment, seize the day. And I think for me, I'm a little bit more of a measured personality. And one of the things that I learned in that pre-surgery was to treat every time I get to spend time with my kids, to treat every time I'm spending time with my family, my dogs, like it was a gift to me on my deathbed. Not that it's my last day, but that I got the opportunity to come back and relive in this moment. And okay, I'm fighting with my daughter, she's being a pill. But if this were the moment that I got on my deathbed, how would I treat my daughter? It would probably still be, strict and clear about what she's got to do, but savor everything about that moment. Last recommendation before surgery, do lots of leg exercises. I promise you that you will not do too many leg exercises before surgery, because your body is going to be in such a kind of degraded state afterwards. Having strong legs, having as much core muscle as you can kind of going into that, it's very helpful, because this whole section of your body is going to be pretty much you're going to have your arms, what's called in the tube, for about a month and a half. And I ended up having to do it for 2 months because I got an infection. So that'd be kind of what I did in the pre-surgery. The other thing that I found was to try to research and buy stuff that might help me. So I made a little list of things that I used at home, and I'll just go through those really quickly here. I got a shower stool, because again, you're not gonna have that mobility of your arms for the first couple of weeks as you come home. A home blood pressure machine. These used to be really expensive. They're now really cheap on Amazon. SpO2, so you can measure your oxygen. That's really important as well, because your lungs get affected in open heart surgery. I actually had a collapsed lung, and so making sure that my SpO2 was measured and consistent was really, really important. I got a hot water heater so I can make myself tea without having to make my way down to the microwave, and that was, again, as I mentioned tea a bunch of times already, I really appreciated it. I had a really sore throat, I had a lot of coughing, and I wanted to get as much warm water in my throat as possible on a regular basis. My kids lent me their mini fridge from the car, and I put Jello in it so I could have Jello anytime I wanted, be a little bit independent. A lot of people say that they want to have a power lift chair, or we have a guest room and I ended up staying in the guest room. One of those two actually will be really helpful. Sleeping is very, very, very challenging for the first few weeks. And so you don't want to be tossing and turning or having somebody bump into you as much as possible in those first few weeks. And then the last thing I would do, if you can, before surgery, is practice getting in and out of bed with your arms in this tube. Practice getting, wherever you're gonna sleep, practice getting up without using your arms. And that way, if you need something, you can figure it out then. Figuring it out after surgery, you can do it. It just hurts a little bit more. And so I would recommend trying to figure that out before surgery. And then the last one was, I had an awesome dinner the night before surgery. Again, just really kind of focusing on having a good mental model before I went in. In terms of the day of surgery, for a man, they're gonna shave everything. And that was a little embarrassing. So I thank goodness got advice from a friend that I can do most of that myself the night before. So I did that the night before myself. And that way, when I did go in for surgery, the very kind lady that was helping me was like, "Oh, that's rad. I don't have to do that." And I was like, "Yes, it is rad." Be grateful. Your mental state matters. Be grateful. You live in today's day when the survival rate of this is almost 100%. It's amazing. And be grateful for the fact that you have all the support and the medical systems that you do these days. It's just tough. In the surgery, those first couple days, I think you'll see other videos or hear from other people. They're tough. They are. And they're tough though, and they hurt, and you're having trouble breathing because you're alive. And the support that you've got in the ICU and from the doctors and nurses, you're going to be fine. It's uncomfortable, but that's because you're alive. I brought a lot of pictures with me. You're not supposed to have frames, I don't think, in the recovery rooms. They told us we weren't supposed to, but we brought them anyway. And so my wife brought a ton of pictures of my family, and that you kind of get myopic when you're in this recovery because there's so much going on in your body. And I remember having tunnel vision, and all I could see was this picture of my family at the end of the bed, and I focused on that. And having that anchor point that's familiar, that's safe, I think that's really important. And then the last one is, if something doesn't feel right, if it's hurting more, ask, because things go wrong, and they need your information. You're the only one that knows what's going on in your body to tell them. When you get home, take it easy. I'm gonna keep saying that. You're gonna see a lot of videos, hopefully, of people that feel awesome, and then you'll see other people that are like, I had to spend, a month in bed. Whichever one you are, just take it easy. Listen to your body. Again, you're gonna be in charge of your recovery. Be grateful. You're home. You made it, right? Like you've made it out of all of the major parts of the surgery, the hardest parts. Just take your time. Be easy on yourself. I would also be really clear about what your needs are. I asked people not to visit me for the first week, and I'm glad I did. I really just wanted to be by myself and kind of have my thinking. I had a couple of my two closest friends who could come, but that was really all I wanted. for the first couple weeks. And if that's what you need, get it, right? Don't let people trample on you. They're here for you. Make sure that they know what you need. If you need a meal train, that helped our family a ton. My wife could, focus on taking care of our kids. A tactical thing, get a medicine pill case so that you're not trying to keep track of your medicines in your head. I had to be on painkillers for a little bit longer than usual because I had an infection, and those don't help you think clearly. And so having a medicine pill case helped a ton. The last couple things are going to be kind of more on the mental side. I wrote a lot. As I talked about already, I was very grateful for a lot of things, and I was fortunate enough, my wife brought me my laptop, and I just started typing. And I typed up all my thoughts and all my experiences, everything I could remember. And as pronounced and as big as these things feel, they're gonna go away, and your memory will kind of fade a little bit, and parts of them are really important for you to hold on to. And so I think writing helps both heal as well as helps you to remember what that experience was like, especially, again, for me, those moments of gratitude. Same two things again from the last one. If something doesn't feel right, though, ask. Like I said, I ended up getting 2 infections. In fact, I got an infection in my arm in the hospital, and my arm started kind of blistering, and the nurse didn't even notice. And I was like, "Hey, is this normal?" And she's like, "Ah!" So don't be afraid to ask. You have to ask, and then again, take it easy. Listen to your body. Don't push yourself too hard. You got to push yourself a little bit every day, but don't push yourself too hard. I did mention the infection, so I'll share a little picture here about what my infection looked like on my incision. So that you'll see here at the bottom of the incision, near whatever that little bone is here at the bottom of your chest. And what happened was that it wasn't really big and pussy and everything like that, but what it did was it split open. So my incision actually opened up, and a little bit of pus started coming out every day, and that's how we knew that it was infected visually. But it hurt. I went from almost no painkillers, like I think Tylenol was all I was on, to having to go all the way back on to my painkillers. And that's something that only you're gonna know in your body. So make sure you communicate that with your doctor. That's what they're there for. Couple of lessons as I went through kind of the later parts of my recovery. So now I'm home. I've been home for a couple weeks. I found that I did not want to be around large groups because normal people will, maybe just bump shoulders a little bit, and that's okay if you don't have wires holding your chest together. And if you do have wires holding your chest together, it kind of hurts. And so I would say just avoid big groups for a little bit. I really loved my walks. I did a ton of up and down hills, and oh my word, I could walk like 5 miles straight, no problem, but doing hills were really where I started to stress my cardiovascular system. I got a little breathing exerciser. I felt so much better. Every day that I made an improvement on that, I could feel it. And so again, doctors give that to you for a reason. Use it. I still have it. I still check it every once in a while to make sure that I'm taking care of my lungs and my heart, and it feels really, really good. I did tons of leg exercises. Those, again, kind of just the endorphins and the movement of your body getting going again. I think those are so important. If you're going into surgery in less than perfect physical condition, use it as an opportunity to turn a new page and invest in that. Don't push yourself beyond what you're capable of, but to do that. A couple of activities where I did have some problems. One was up and down the stairs. I was very indignant and I didn't want help. And because your arms are like this, you can't really hold the handles very well. Just be careful, be slow, and take your time. For the in and out of the bed and in and out of the chair, again, just take your time. If you put your arms up like this to stop yourself, you're gonna slow down this recovery. And these bones need to heal. And there's a reason you need to keep your arms down. A couple things that I really remember being painful was sneezing and coughing. Like I said, I got sick a little bit, And sneezing and coughing were really, 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 really tough. I used a mask, which I know some people don't like, but for me it helped. I wore a mask and it just kept the humidity around my mouth and my nose higher so I didn't cough as often, and I liked that. Do what your doctor tells you. In my case, it was cardiac rehab, and then I went back to my doctor and said, I don't think it's working anymore, and then we agreed to stop. But do the exercise, do the things your doctor's telling you. And then once again, if something doesn't feel right, ask. You are the only person that knows your body, and you gotta listen to it. You gotta say, hey, this part doesn't feel right. Or when I got COVID, for example, I made sure to tell my doctor that my cough was lasting longer, and they gave me some extra medicine and some extra directions to make sure I took care of myself. Bringing me to today, so it's been 1 year. I feel wonderful. I do every activity that I did before, but just a little different. And so things like I mentioned, my exercise pattern's a little bit different. Swimming doesn't quite work the same way that it used to. My heart rate has shifted a little bit, and I've needed to adjust a lot of my diet and patterns to match that. But at the end of the day, the key thing for me, kind of looking back after 1 year, is that I'm able to do everything. I feel wonderful. I'm engaged in my life, and as much as possible, I carry that sense of gratitude with me, which again is why I'm making this video. So again, thank you, Mr. Scott. And if you ever want to, have some fun with it as well at a year, you can kind of play the lottery a little bit, because you're going to have metal wrapped as stainless steel wires wrapped around your sternum for the rest of your life. And so every once in a while I set off metal detectors. So I went to Disney World with my family, and sure enough, every time we went in and out of the park, I got to have a special inspection, and I got to be Iron Man for the day and tell them about my metal chest. So, again, at a year, I couldn't be happier, and I couldn't be more appreciative for everything that I got from my doctors, from my family, and again, from this weird stranger, Scott and Stephanie, out there somewhere. Thank you to all of you guys. You're going to do great, and I hope this video helps you if you're going to go through this.